Jason, and I'm here excited to interview a jazz legend right here in front of us here at Tony G's in San Antonio. Norman Connors is here with us. Norman, can you tell people a little bit of background? Where are you from?
I'm from Philadelphia, PA. I grew up in the Richard Allen Home Projects, 4 doors away from Bill Cosby.
From Bill Cosby?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Bill Cosby was a community hero. He was a great athlete. He was about maybe 8, 9, 10 years older than me, but I looked up to him, and I used to play with his younger brother.
Right. And so in your talents, you're playing instruments, you're a musician, you're a composer, a lot of different influences. So when you went into music, what got your start to get into your talents?
Well, in the projects, they used to have these rehearsals from some of the greatest musicians. They end up being leaders and important musicians themselves.
Mm-hmm.
People like Lee Morgan.
Okay.
And McCoy Tyner, who played with John Coltrane later, and Lee Morgan played with Art Blakey and became a star himself.
Mm-hmm.
And the drummer was Lex Humphreys, who played with Dizzy Gillespie, eventually, and Donald Byrd, and Spanky DeBress, who ended up playing with Art Blakey. So they were my first influences.
Mm-hmm.
That was like when I was like 4, 5, 6, 7 years old. I used to go to rehearsals every day, right across the street.
Oh, okay.
And then when I turned 13, I got a chance to meet Miles Davis.
Miles Davis.
My uncle took me to where he was playing in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother used to work at a very exclusive men's and boys' clothing called GQ Clothes.
Mm-hmm.
And they used to give my mother the clothes because I used to go in the studio and put the clothes on. And so the manufacturer used to give my mother the samples.
Okay.
So when I was living in the projects, I had like 25 and 30 suits and long leather coats, and I had the clothes.
You had it.
And all my boys, all my friends would come and borrow my clothes.
Oh, okay. They knew you had the gear.
I would just give them the clothes.
Oh,
I had so many clothes.
Okay.
So when I met Miles, I was dressed like him. So so when he saw me with a double-breasted Chuck-type suit, black patent leather shoes, and a white silk scarf, and I walked up to him. I said, "Mr. Davis, my name is Norman Connors, and I want to play with you." And he looked at me and he dropped to the floor with laughter and he said he never said anything like this before. So when I was 13, I probably looked about 11.
Okay.
And dressed up like that. I'm wearing like a $1,000 suit.
Right.
Being 13 years old, he just couldn't believe it.
Couldn't believe it. Already dressed
So
in the
from
part.
that point on, he told me, whenever I come to New York, just come by and knock on his door.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I did.
And that's what you did.
At 17.
At 17. All right. All right. And so, as your career started to take off, every artist comes to a point where they feel like they've arrived. In your career, when did you feel like you had arrived?
Well, I had 2 different parts of arrival. Now, if you're talking about arrival, once I started recording, that's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
But once I moved to New York, and right before I moved to New York, I got a chance to play with John Coltrane.
Okay. So you're on that stage.
And when I got through that, and he let me come back 3 days in a row, that's when I felt I arrived.
Oh yeah.
At that point.
Right.
When I felt I arrived was when I moved to New York, and the record companies came after me.
All right.
And I was working with Pharoah Sanders.
Okay.
I was on the road with Pharoah, and the record companies came after 2 or 3 different record companies came after me and wanted me to go with them. I told them, I'll never leave Pharoah. They said, you got to leave Pharoah.
Uh-huh.
They said, you're going to be big. I said, I'm not going for that. So when I did my first album, it went #1 in Japan, and they kept me on to do 7 more records, albums. That's when I thought I arrived at that point.
Right.
But my idols were still Miles Davis, John Coltrane, and Max Roach.
Okay.
They were my idols. So.
Right. And so you had this international success. You had success then.
I had international success. I was like one of the top jazz people, going top 10 every album out. #1, #10 jazz album.
Okay.
The other part that I felt I arrived is when I went top 10 to #1 R&B.
Oh yeah.
I crossed over into R&B with Valentine Love, and then "You're My Starship" was one of the biggest songs in black music.
Yes.
150 rappers just sampled it, It sold millions and it's still selling.
Still selling, and that's probably interesting, as a lot of people do it. So a lot of us know that we hear the jazz influences in today's hip hop still. So when you're listening to music and you see those influences, jazz is almost transcendent to all musics. How do you feel about it?
Jazz has, well, country music, and people like Quincy Jones, even myself, even the R&B artists, Philly International, their musical orchestras and Motown, they were all jazz musicians.
I see. And people
Quincy
know
was
that.
Quincy was a jazz musician himself. All the stuff you hear on Michael Jackson's album and on his albums and the albums that he produced, you hear the jazz influence.
It's all there
Yeah,
in today's music.
you know, and even all this, even my stuff, my crossover stuff that I do on people, or the R&B stuff and pop and crossover and Quiet Storm, it's all jazz really.
Right.
And all the guys that play with me, and all the people that I choose on my sessions are jazz guys. That's it.
That's it. So there you have it. Norman Connors doing his thing. Another jazz legend here for us in San Antonio, still giving his music and talents. Will be at the Lila Cockrell on Monday night. What you got for us coming up?
Well, I'm with the jazz legends, the
Yes.
true jazz legends
That's
we call
right.
ourselves,
Yeah.
or they called us. Lonnie Liston Smith, I played with him with Pharaoh,
Okay.
and he became a known artist himself, and he had hit records. And Ronnie Laws, I'm very close to the Laws family, which is Eloise Laws and Deborah Laws and Hubert Laws. Hubert Laws played on a lot of my albums, and Ronnie Laws played on my album. So I'm in great company. And Jean Carn, I discovered her,
Yeah.
and we've been doing things together for years. She was my second singer. Dee Dee Bridgewater was my first.
Okay.
Then Jean, then Phyllis Hyman,
All right.
and then Eleanor Mills and all these other people.
Yes.
So I feel good about it. And I feel good about Norman Brown. I discovered him. And a lot of people don't know, I discovered Stanley Clarke. I brought Stanley Clarke into New York to play with Pharaoh years ago, and then he started playing with me.
Okay.
Then he played with Chick Corea
Gotcha.
and everybody else.
So he played with you. in the
Played with me
beginning.
first.
Okay.
Yeah.
It seems almost like there's a family of community is somewhere in the career paths cross where you get to work with a musician and then you start working together.
Right. Well, what I've been doing, I handpick certain people, and they start working with me, and then I take them in the studio and bang some hits out of them,
Yep.
and then they go on their own, they fly away and become big stars.
Gotcha.
So I feel good about that.
That's right.
So everybody I touch, they were unknown at first, now they're stars.
Branches from the tree, right?
Yeah.
Branches from the tree. Well, there's a treat right here. We're definitely honored to be here to have this interview today. I do appreciate you taking the time. And
Thank
we
you.
look forward to the legends doing their thing as they get together and bring us a treat as jazz continues to live on through all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm writing a book too.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm writing a book, my life story,
You are writing a book.
and it's coming out next year, and I have a new album coming out in February.
Okay.
It's called Norman Connors Royalty, 45 years.
All right.
So I'm celebrating 45 years as we speak,
Nice.
as a recording artist.
And I'm sure that's going to be highly anticipated because in your book, are you going to take us through your whole ride from the start? all
Whole
the way through
rise
career?
from the projects with Bill Cosby to here
Here
and
you are.
hit to here.
Yeah, still doing it here, right? And we keep on, and the story keeps on writing. So
Keep
we
on-
appreciate that.
And I think they say it's going to be a movie, so all that's good.
That'd be a good story already.
Right.
Thank you so
My
much.
life story, I lived a very exciting life.
Without question.
Because I went up to Jazz Pike and I knew everybody in jazz, and then I crossed over into R&B and I know everybody in R&B, including I met Duke Ellington at Miles Davis's house, and I met Miles when I was 13, and then I met everybody on the R&B. So I met Aretha. I played opposite Aretha. I played opposite Miles in concerts. I went on the road. Went on the road with Ella Fitzgerald, Sarah Vaughan. I played opposite Count Basie. So all these great people that I know
Yes.
and I looked up to, and I still do. I feel good about it.
That's right.
I feel good that I just know all these people, all these great people. Cab Calloway,
Oh yes.
Nat King. Well, I was a kid with Nat King Cole. I didn't know him that well, but everybody else, people like Johnny Mathis,
Uh-huh.
people like that. Mm-hmm. You know, so I feel good.
Absolutely.
I live a great life, and I feel good. I'm still doing it.
It's still doing it.
Still doing it.
Party don't stop.